What does the death of Charlie Kirk and the rise of anti-Semitism around the world have in common? And we know that Christians stand up for Christians, but why do Christians also have a vested interest in standing up for the Jewish people and the Jewish people for the rights of Christians? We'll talk about this and more on this edition of the Alex McFarland Show. Good evening, Alex McFarland here. You know, as we film this show, it's 3 weeks since we had Charlie Kirk speak for our Conversations That Matter Summer Worldview series. And I look at this brochure and I think about the months leading up to the planning of this. Charlie Kirk, Uncommon Sense. And as we all know, September 10, 2025, he was assassinated at a university in Utah. And global headlines have covered this. And I think about this, as you know, I'm sure, in the aftermath of the tragic death of Charlie Kirk, there has been just very unsettling vitriol. He's a Christian. He thinks Jesus is the only way of salvation. He advocates for traditional marriage. He stood against the idea that gender is fluid. In other words, things that are, matters of reality and record. And I was thinking about, just as suddenly among many Protestants, Catholics, and Christians, there's a cry about, oh my goodness, we have to stand for the rights of Christians. That's true, and we should. But for years, we have said that Christians need to stand up for the rights of Jewish people, because one of the cancers of our time is anti-Semitism. And, at a time when the cry for human rights and equality is just heard the world over, isn't it ironic that it seems like the last racism that gets a pass is hatred of Jewish people? But Christians and Jews really should have, I would say they can have, a very symbiotic relationship in advocating, not trying to proselytize each other, although as a Christian, I travel every week of the year talking about Jesus. I want people to believe in Jesus. I believe Jesus is authentic. Jesus is the Messiah. But even apart from that, just our agreed position on the humanity of all people, the worth, value, dignity. And like in the case of Charlie Kirk, because he didn't agree with trans ideology, because he dared to speak against the prevalent critical theory narrative that America is structurally racist, that Marxism is the answer. He gave young people a reasoned pushback against so many of the narratives of our time. There's almost the assumption that he forfeited his right to dignity, due process, life itself. And in a similar way, and watch this, and I think you don't have to look far and you'll see it, Jewish people and conservatives that stand for the nation of Israel. And we do not believe that Israel should give up land for peace. And Hamas, a terrorist organization, is wrong to kill Jewish people. And the attacks of October 7, 2023, there's no way you can justify that. By taking this position, in the minds of many, it's almost like we have forfeited our right to dignity, respect, and a hearing. Well, stay tuned. We're going to come back and talk with two Jewish friends, Jenny Kaiser, David Silverman. We're going to talk about the rights of Israel and the rights of all of us on this edition of the Alex McFarland Show. Stay tuned. Would you like a book to help you understand the biblical prophecies, the passages about the end of time? Hi, Alex McFarland. For well over a decade, Bert Harper and I have been on the nationally syndicated AFR show, Exploring the Word. Over 3,000 shows we've done together, and Bert and I have a brand new book as of fall 2025, 100 Bible Questions and Answers on Prophecy and the End Times. You can get it at booksellers everywhere. Our brand new book, Bert Harper, Alex McFarland, Exploring the Word, 100 Bible Questions and Answers on Prophecy and the End Times, published by our great friends at Broad Street Publishing. Check it out, and we believe it will help you understand how to live and thrive in these last days. Welcome back to the program. Alex McFarland here. You know, in talking about the problem of violence and just the rhetoric that has sort of metastasized into anger and even killing, the subject that you've heard me speak of so many times that has to be opposed and called out, anti-Semitism. I believe that the violence against Charlie Kirk, to a degree at least, runs on a parallel track with another form of violence that we want to condemn, and that's anti-Semitism. And I could not be more pleased tonight. You're going to meet two longtime friends and colleagues, and we'll talk about this. And they know firsthand what it's like to live in a world of anti-Semitism. For one, we're going to hear from Jenny Kaiser. She's an award-winning producer, director. She is with the Jewish Federation of Greensboro, North Carolina, where we film, and that's part of the Jewish Federations of North America. She has a journalism degree from the University of Georgia, and her documentary, Women of the Shoah, which deals with the Holocaust, has been nominated for 4 different awards. We'll also hear from a longtime friend of a different worldview, David Silverman. David and I have known each other about 15 years, and his handle on Twitter is Mr. Atheist Pants. But he's a graduate of Brandeis University with a bachelor's degree in computers. He also has an MBA from Penn State. And the three of us, while there are some things that we don't agree on, there are many, many more things that we absolutely do agree on, namely human rights and the need for civility in our world today. What a privilege to have with us on the program Jenny Kaiser and David Silverman. I welcome you both. Jenny, I want to start with you. Define, if you would, for the audience, what is anti-Semitism, and do you believe it's growing in the world today?
Sure. Anti-Semitism is the basic belief that Jews are not equal. Any kind of hate against Jews is anti-Semitism. Any type of feeling that Jews don't have a right to self-governance or equal rights within a community or a land. That's pretty much the gist of anti-Semitism. Um, we it's hard to describe and it's hard to define, which is why there's a new definition that's actually going in through Congress to be able to define anti-Semitism and to be able to be really succinct about what it is and giving examples of what does Jewish hate look like and how does it manifest. Unfortunately, in the past 2 years since October 7th of 2023, anti-Semitism in the United States has gone up by 400%. And so what we're looking at right now is children that can't go to school without having armed police officers in the parking lot and in the facility, that every Jewish facility in North America has multi-levels of security to stop someone from coming in because the danger is there. We've seen it in Boulder, Colorado. We've seen it in Washington, D.C. It's there, we know it's there, and so we are really fortifying our defenses because of it.
Mm, thank you. David, there's a lot that I want to unpack with you, but if you would, tell me about what is it like to be a Jewish person in North America, and for like growing up, did you feel an otherness about being Jewish?
So let me just start by just quickly defining Jew. Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So a Venn diagram, 2 overlapping circles. Okay. One circle is a group of people who believe in God. They believe in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. The other people are the members of a very, very stupidly named race. Ashkenazi Jews. We're extremely gorgeous, okay? We look exactly like me, and we overlap with the
And
other
very
Jews. We're
humble
both
too.
Jews, okay? So I'm out here, okay? I'm the Ashkenazi Jew, but not the religious Jew. But we're all called Jews, and we're all victims of anti-Semitism. Growing up, I was never really religious, but yeah, I was always othered. I was called lots of slurs and names back then, and I got a little bit of harassment growing up. And I guess it would be considered a substantial amount, but it wasn't something that really got in my way. And I remember going to Hebrew school as an atheist, and I remember not believing anything I was told, including the fact that anti-Semitism was everywhere. I remember my Hebrew teachers teaching me about God, teaching me about Abraham and Isaac, and anti-Semitism is everywhere, and you need to worry about it because the Holocaust happened, and it could happen again. And I didn't believe any of that at all. And I went through my entire growing up phase. Yes, I was exposed to people who called me names. It never did me no harm. But now I feel like I wish I could call those teachers back and, apologize to them for not appreciating it because, like Jenny said, in the past 2 years, everything has changed. Everything has changed.
It's ironic, and I have to say, as tragic as it was October 7, 2023, that Saturday morning when that news was breaking globally about more than 1,200 Jews killed in a matter of moments, I thought, well, finally the world will feel empathy for the Jewish people and the nation of Israel. And it
Wrong.
was the opposite.
Nope,
Jenny,
didn't happen.
didn't happen. Jenny, what was your reaction? And were you surprised by the actual escalation of anti-Semitism in the aftermath of October 23?
I had gone in the past 2 years, and I don't like to completely change my mind about things very often, Alex, as you know very well. When I have a firm belief, I like to keep my firm beliefs. And I used to believe that Israel didn't need to exist. For the majority of my life, I thought Israel didn't need to exist. We're only supporting Israel because it's a country with a state church that is Jewish. Why are we favoring a state church that is Jewish? Should we favor a state church that is Christian? I had this whole narrative in my mind because I didn't believe the anti-Semitism. But it wasn't October 7th that got me, Alex. It was October 8th.
Yes.
It was
Okay.
October 8th. Okay, that was the day, figuratively speaking. That was the day when the entire world said we could unite behind the Jews and work against Hamas, go in, get the hostages as a united world front against evil, and taking it out. The war would have been over in a month. But on October 8th, the world said, nah, the world raised the Palestinian flag. And all of the anti-Semitism that my teachers warned me about just gushed out. And the countries en masse gushed out. And I was dumbfounded. And now I am a Zionist, an atheist Zionist, an Ashkenazi Jew, atheist Zionist, because guess what? The world is kind of against us after all. The world is actually kind of against us after all. All of us, the religious, the Ashkenazis, it's madness.
I want to come back to that.
I live in Canada. Go ahead.
Yeah, I want to come back to that. Hold that thought. Jenny Kaiser, weigh in, if you would, about your feelings and reactions October 8th and forward.
Yeah, I think I woke up on the morning of October 7th and it was a Jewish holiday and Shabbat. And I typically don't turn on my phone, but something was just like, "Hey, you've got to turn your phone on." And so I turned my phone on and I looked at it and I saw what was happening and my friends from Israel were on WhatsApp with me saying we're in our shelters and I immediately knew we were going to war. This is before any retaliation. This is still My friends were in their bomb shelters. This was still the IDF had not really been able to go to the kibbutzim to help people yet, and I said we're at war. And the first few hours, it was, "Oh my god, this is happening. How can this be happening?" And then, like Dave said, October 8th happened, and we were being accused of a genocide. We were being accused of hurting people, and we were accused of killing people and bombing Gaza. The bombing hadn't started yet. There was no ground invasion. They were saying there are IDF soldiers in Gaza. No, like, we were still recovering from the fact that 1,200 people were killed and 250 people were being held hostage. Um, we hadn't wrapped our head around anything yet as diaspora Jews, let alone the Israeli Jews in the IDF. So it was very much, "Oh, yeah, this is happening, and we're in trouble." I'd say by October 10th, we were seeing graffiti, um, on the streets in Greensboro. We were seeing stuff happening in New York, and all of a sudden, the loneliness and the isolation was horrible. That being said, the interesting thing, and I really noticed this because I think of our friendship, Alex, is that my friends that were evangelical and very Christian and went to church, they were the ones calling me up saying, "Not only do I feel for you about what happened on October 7th, but I'm appalled at what's happening today." There was a whole group of evangelicals that met at our General Assembly, which is every Jewish community within North America that includes Canada and Mexico. And we had a symposium and we talked about how Christians and Jews can work together because the reality is, I said it in the film, that anti-Semitism and Jewish hate is the canary in the coal mine. That if somebody has it in them to hate Jews just for the sake of hating Jews, like no rationality with it,
It's inexplicable.
they have the capacity to hate Black people. They have the capacity to hate Latin people, they have the capacity to hate Asian people, every other minority in this world. If you have the capacity to hate me, you have the capacity to hate others. And so we need to stop it now. And we need to be able to call it out and say what it is and then start listening. I think that the cure for this and what I'm doing right now and my capacity now in the community is to say this is horrible and what do we do now to fix it? And the reality is we just stop trying to convince someone else that our viewpoint is right. That we have to start talking for the sake of understanding somebody else's perspective, somebody else's worldview, and then seek for understanding and seek for empathy, instead of just sitting here saying, pounding the table, saying, "I'm right, you're wrong, and if you don't agree with me, then you're a hater and you're evil."
Yeah, I want to say proselytizing, that's a whole nother subject. You guys know me well. I'm a Christian. I travel and speak. I tell people about
Really?
Jesus. Yeah, honest. But this is not even what we're talking about. We're talking about basic human rights, respect, worth, value, dignity, safety that is due to every human being. David, you and I were backstage at a college. In fact, I think it was in Canada, Toronto, and we were talking about Israel, and you basically said, I don't think Israel really means anything. Now this is 5-6 years ago, and now when I was reading on Facebook that you said you're a Zionist, frankly I was surprised, very pleased, but we've only got a couple of minutes in this conversation, folks. There will be a part 2 to this show, and I don't want you to miss it. But I really was there a moment or was it gradual, David, when you said, I'm gonna on record advocate for Israel?
Oh, there was a growing swell, but there was a moment. And it wasn't very long before I wrote that article. And that moment was when I looked at the number of countries. There was a map of the countries who want to recognize a Palestine state right now as they're in a state of terrorism. And I looked at it, and I live in Canada. Okay. The entire world was the same color except for the United States and Israel and a couple of countries, but it was so dramatically one-sided. And I live in Canada now, and Canada has done pretty much everything Hamas wanted to do. Canada got thanked by Hamas. Then Canada says, we didn't want Hamas's thanks. How can Hamas thank us? But, they did everything that Hamas wants to do. And then Jenny mentioned a couple cities in the States where it was dangerous. Just a few days ago in Ottawa, a Jewish woman was beaten at a supermarket. And then the Canadian politicians say, oh, no, this is so bad. I have no idea why this is happening. But they do know, of course, you're doing everything Hamas wants, except, you're doing everything such to the point that they thank you. Even though you project their thanks, you're actually doing what they want. That's gonna foment anti-Semitism. Duh. They can't not know this. And there was a moment, Alex, when I looked at that map, that world map, and I realized that it was Donald Trump, not the United States, Donald Trump that was doing it. And I'm not a Trump fan. And that was the time when I realized that Israel needed to be supported dramatically. And that was the moment.
We got to take a break. Folks, there will be a part 2. We'll visit further with Jenny Kaiser and David Silverman. Stay tuned. We're back after this.
I just returned from a conference at the Cove, and it was absolutely breathtaking in every way. The mountain views, the tranquil areas within the woods, and just being alone with God. Mornings spent watching the sunrise from a rocking chair with coffee in one hand and my Bible in the other. Evenings spent reflecting on the incredible spiritual teaching. It's the embodiment of peacefulness. Come and experience the Cove for yourself.
Hi, Alex McFarland here. Welcome back to the program. During the course of the conversation with David Silverman, Jenny Kaiser, so much was said about Israel and the land. Lest anyone is unfamiliar with this, I want to read from the Bible, the book of Genesis, what the Bible says about the covenant God made with Abraham. And I want to bring out a word because I would argue by historical precedent and also by divine right, the land of Israel belongs to the Israelites. In Genesis 12, God told Abraham, Genesis 12, 1 through 3, and I would encourage you to read this. Get out of your country, leave your father's house. You're going to go to a land that I will show you. God says to Abraham, I will make of you a great nation. I will make your name great. I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. Genesis 12, 1 through 3. And then you get over into like Genesis chapter 15, and it says that Israel will have this land. Genesis 15, 18 through 21. God made a covenant with Abraham. Unto your descendants have I given this land, from the river of Egypt unto the great river, the river Euphrates. It talks about the boundaries of the land. That's why part of the reason why a Palestinian state would be so wrong, because that land belongs to Israel. I want to give you another word that I would encourage you to look out for. In Genesis 17, 1 through 14, God is telling Abraham, I'm going to make this covenant with you. I will multiply your descendants exceedingly, and your name will no longer be called Abram, but Abraham. I'll make you fruitful. Kings will come from you. Verse 7, God tells Abraham, I will establish my covenant between you and me and your seed in their generations for an everlasting covenant. Everlasting. Verse 8, and I will give you the land wherein you're a stranger, and all the land of Canaan for an everlasting possession, and I will be their God. And it goes on, verse 13, my covenant will be in your flesh, an everlasting covenant. So how long is everlasting? A long time. Everlasting. That land was Israel's. That land is Israel's. It would be certainly a fool's errand to try and fight a promise that God says is forever. And so understand, folks, part of the way that we advocate, I would say, for the Bible and the Word of God is to advocate for the Jewish people. I would ask the Jewish people to advocate for the rights and humanity of Christians. Charlie Kirk did not deserve to die for saying that a man is not a woman, and Jewish people do not deserve to be beaten, harassed, demeaned, and even killed because of their ethnicity. Okay, we're talking about rights, standing up for the rights of all. Let's stand also for the rights of Christians and Jews. Hi, Alex McFarland here, and I want to invite you to be a part of something very powerful, United in Prayer. Through United in Prayer, people are coming together to pray for our families, our churches, and our nation. Each week we send you prayer points and suggestions about how to pray with power. So please go to my website, alexmcfarland.com, and join us, and together we'll be united in prayer. Alex McFarland here. A big shout out and thank you to partners like you that are enabling us to do events, publishing, and broadcasting. Every year, thousands of people are praying to accept Christ as their Savior. Young people are being inoculated against wokeness in our camps and our events. And I want to invite you to please partner with us to help this continue. Our growing staff is working hard to really give America and beyond the only solution to the problems, and that's the new birth relationship through Jesus Christ. We've got a brand new book, and I want to send you a copy of this book, 100 Bible Questions and Answers on Prophecy and the End Times. These are actual questions from the listeners to our radio shows, television shows about, will Israel rebuild their temple? Is America in Bible prophecy? Are we living in the last days? And sadly, things like the recent shooting of Charlie Kirk, is the escalation in violence an indicator that we are near the end of time? For your donation of at least $40, I'm going to send you a copy of this brand new book, and you can donate online securely. If you go to alexmcfarland.com, please hit that donate button, or you may mail a check to Alex McFarland Ministries. Just AMM is all you would need to write on your check. But mail that donation, please. It's tax deductible to P.O. Box 485, Pleasant Garden, North Carolina, 27313. We're proclaiming truth. A hungry world seems eager to hear it, and I thank you for standing with us. Please, your support gift, let us hear from you today.